On the 25th of January this year, the anti-government demonstrations have started in Egypt that were against the rule of the Egyptian president Hosni Mubarak, who has been ruling the country for almost 30 years. The events have been as a result of what has happened in Tunisia. The population is highly unhappy with the welfare conditions in Egypt, in particular with a very high inflation, but also high unemployment levels, particularly among the younger generation. The events are affecting very seriously the economy and equally the travel and tourism sector per se. In addition to that, many of the airlines flying to Egypt are cancelling their flights. They're changing their timetables, but equally travel retail operators and hotels are very closely monitoring what is happening there. That said, it is important to know that certain areas outside of the major cities, particularly at the resorts, at the Red Sea resorts such as Hurghada and Sharm el-Sheikh, the events are much more subdued, and although the international governments are urging their citizens to avoid travel to this part of the world, still the events are much more subdued. All these events are having a very serious impact on the economy and travel and tourism itself. Egypt has weathered the economic crisis much better than some of the other regional players. And tourism was on the up the first quarter of 2010, and it continued, and the expectations of Euromonitor are that prior to the events that it would have performed quite well. Obviously, all these events are threatening the reputation and the perception of foreign travelers about the country itself. As a result of these events, many of the tour operators, the likes of the TUI Travel PLC, are expecting to have huge losses. The latter has pinpointed that they expect the events in Tunisia and Egypt to cost them nearly £30 million. It is important to mention that the events are expecting to affect the country from a short to medium term rather than a long term. And it is equally important to mention the fact that every 1 in 7 citizens in Egypt are involved with the travel and tourism, and inevitably these events will impact their jobs and their income. Well, Euromonitor International Research prior to the events expected that the tourism arrivals to the country were to grow by an average of 9%, reaching nearly 20 million by 2015. It also expected that the incoming tourism receipts, although they fell by 1.5% for 2010, to reach 57 billion Egyptian pounds. Of course, the slowdown of the performance of the travel and tourism was majorly affected by the economic crisis and the fact that the major source countries, the likes of the US and Western European countries, have been severely affected by the economic downturn, and many of the travelers and customers from these parts of the world have tightened their belts. Well, Egypt is a highly competitive tourist destination, and the past experiences and demonstrations that have happened in the past show that the country has been able to recover very quickly. Let's not forget that it's very close geographically to Europe, and it also not pegged to the euro, which makes it very attractive to European travelers, but equally to travelers from other parts of the world. Undeniably, the events have changed the perception of a country where stability rules, and this was changed in the blink of the eye. I think that the major problem and that would come from these events is the threat that this might have a ripple effect to other countries in the region. Hence, many of the neighboring countries have ceased travel to those destinations because they're expecting, riots as well. Inevitably, also the events in Egypt are having an impact on the oil prices. We know that the Suez Channel in Egypt is facilitating the transportation of oil, and oil is very sensitive to any uncertainties such as those events. And as a result of that, there would be fluctuations of the oil prices. I expect that countries such as Spain and Turkey will be the preferred choice for many of the travelers who are trying to avoid this part of the world because of this the social unrest. And also many companies that are operating in Egypt and Tunisia also to introduce quite a lot of discounts and special deals once this is over.